We'll start talking about the normal situation with no lammath growth. This tree on my left has very little lammath, if any lammath growth, and this is the normal situation. On my right is a leader with quite a bit of lammath growth, and lammath growth tends to be more vigorous than the sessile buds that lay against the stem. So they can be either lay horizontal like this, or towards the top they can be more vertical. And if they become too vertical, they'll compete with the existing top, and you either use them as the new top or cut them. Lammath growth is almost like getting two growth years in one. These buds are much more vigorous than the buds that are against the stem. If they're growing horizontally, they'll tend to form a branch. If they're growing vertically, as here, they'll tend to become a new leader. In this situation, we have probably four lammath buds that want to be a tops. So if we're going to be doing the cutting on these, we want to make sure that we have two buds at least left on each segment of the lammath growth that we're cutting. So I'll cut these so they don't compete with the top right here. Since this leader on this tree is excessively long, we're going to be limiting the top growth by cutting to a lammath bud right here. And we're going to eliminate a bud on the back and then tie this little piece of lammath growth up so it's encouraged to become the new top. Here's an example of how lammath growth performs from last year. These buds were all lammath growth in the prior season, and they were all cut so that we had at least two buds left. We cut out the vertical part, and these have become very nice branches. And the section in here is a nice top. This bit of vertical lammath growth is now competing as a leader. Last season, this should have been cut at this point, so we have two buds which become these two branches and no competing leaders. These were cut last year and they look fine. Here you can see the problems year after year repeating themselves in dealing with lammath growth. So here we have lammath growth that became quite vertical last season. It should have been cut out here so that we had two branches at least below the vertical point. We have the problem repeating itself this season with vertical lammath growth above the terminal bud. The solution for this is to cut back these very vertical pieces so that there's at least two buds and they won't compete with the top. So the solution is going to be trimming these pieces of lammath growth that are competing leaders near the base and cutting these tops, always making sure we leave at least two buds. If it still wants to be horizontal, that bud can be left. Here's a situation with lammath growth where we cut a little too excessively last season and we only left one bud. And we only have one branch coming out. Better to cut out a little further on the lammath growth so you make sure you have at least two buds, as was done over here. Here's a situation where last season we made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts. Each one of the cuts we had at least two buds left, and they formed a nice whorl here. On the one that we did not cut, it probably wasn't going too vertical, so we left it, but that could simply be trimmed here this next season. So here's the one lammath branch that was not trimmed last year. So we're going to maintain the symmetry of this branch by cutting it approximately right here.